ISIS, not Al Qaeda, white supremacists.
That's right. White supremacy is the most lethal threat to all of America today. White supremacy. If you are a white supremacist, you are now the most lethal threat to American democracy. I am Jarrin Jackson, and I love America. Today is Tuesday, June the 1st, 2021, the day after Memorial Day. My bias, as usual, is I am a Bible-believing Christian. I am a constitutional defending, patriotic Trump supporter. Lynn would multiple times. I can mess that up. The Bible is the Word of God. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that Jesus came, lived a perfect life, born of a virgin, died on the cross. He was buried, and 3 days later, he rose from the grave. You believe in that, you go to heaven. If you do not believe in that, you're going to go to hell. Conscious eternal torment forever and ever. Quick admin note, I have more people tuning in. I appreciate that, for especially the people who are inviting. You can always find information about me in the links below. That means the words that are below this video, those are how you find me. You can put your email at my website. You can follow me on Telegram. I try to do this Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Central, and then I do Bible studies, occasionally. We'll do one tomorrow morning. I'll live stream it, and then I'll post it up. Whenever I finish videos, I will always post them on Rumble, because the godless commie platforms will kick me off because they don't like me talking about the way that they talk. The last little admin note, and this was a little bit why things kind of had a rough transition here at 6 o'clock, is that people have asked me to let the stream build a little bit so that they can get on, because if I do it right at 6, then they don't do it. Well, I didn't do it 10 minutes before leading up to 6 o'clock because I was late for lots of different reasons. And then the last admin note, if I reply on Telegram, I reply to a lot of different people. I respond. I try to be engaged in the chat as much as possible. I get hundreds and thousands of messages. I generally try not to be a jerk to people. If I come off as a jerk, understand that this is digital, it's internet, so give me grace. But then also recognize I see hundreds and thousands of messages across different platforms. So if I'm responding in a way that makes it seem as though I didn't read what you said, it's probably because I either read it wrong or it didn't say what I thought it meant. And in that case, please have grace and patience and say, hey, here's my thought, and then be clear. I want to engage and talk to as many people as possible, answer questions, do whatever. Listen, I'm not up for debate. I just don't care about debating. It just doesn't make sense. It's a rivalrous position. If I'm going to debate you, then that means I'm against you. And in my mind, if I'm against you, then, are we going to take this thing to the mat? Are we actually going to be real and legitimate and do it the old-fashioned way? Or are we going to type on the internet? Because no one typing on the internet has ever convinced anybody else ever typing on the internet, I suspect. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about racism and bigotry and white supremacy and all these other things. Godless commie dear leader Joe Biden is here in town in Tulsa, spreading the propaganda and the lies about certain things. And so this live stream functions as a Make Sense Monday, but since it's Tuesday, it's a Make Sense Tuesday. But also, I'm going to talk about the Tulsa race false flags. You'll never hear anyone of note say that the Tulsa race riots or the Tulsa race massacres were false flags, but I'm calling it a false flag, and we'll get into that whenever we do our big phase 1. We got a big update. But before the update, I have laughs. But before the laughs, I want to say if today is... Wait, today's not Tuesday. Is today Tuesday? Yeah, today's Tuesday. Yeah, today's Tuesday. I'm dumb. Yeah, today's Tuesday. Yeah, I was about to say. Yesterday was Memorial Day. I want to give a shout out to Jeff Hutchins, who, his son was who I spoke about yesterday. That is Corporal Andrew Hutchins' grave. So that's who I spoke about last Friday. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, please go back. I enjoyed my Friday Memorial Day special. Let me know if you guys want to hear more like war stories or battle perspectives on how to do stuff. I had a lot of people saying that was an interesting part. But for me, it's just war stories. So it's just like telling stuff about what I did in Afghanistan. I don't know. If people want to hear that, just let me know. But the phase 1 today is going to be the Tulsa race false flag, and then phase 2 is going to be an interview with Blind Jarrin. That's right, Blind Jarrin. We're going to meet and talk to Blind Jarrin. It's going to be so awesome. Oh, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have so much fun. Okay, let's roll the rock. I have turned down the volume, so hopefully it's not as loud. Let's roll the rock and get to some laughs. Okay, I really turned down the rock. This is the Godless Kami, someone from China saying something. Watch this.
的国际专家学者纷纷对美国将溯源政治化的做法提出了质疑和批评。世卫组织专家组成员、澳大利亚科学家德怀尔表示，没有证据可以证明新冠病毒是从实验室泄露出去的。专家组的成员美国学者达萨克称，他和其他来武汉进行溯源研究的学者已经发布了大量且充分的资料，证明病毒最有可能来自自然界，来自实验室的可能性几乎不存在。美国所谓情报报告是政治性的，不具有科学性。哥伦比亚大学病毒学家拉斯姆森称，媒体将实验室泄露的阴谋论当成需要认真对待的研究方向，就好比在气候变化的议题中，将气候变化并不存在这种谣言当成是一种应该被认真对待的学说一样荒诞。美国的科普作家西格尔称，实验室泄露阴谋论之所以有市场，是因为人们以此来寻求安慰，尤其是那些搞砸了防疫工作的政客们。
Do you notice? Are we supposed to believe these godless commies? They butcher and sacrifice and commit genocide against their own people. These are godless commies in every sense of the word, and now they're going to blame the media. Isn't it a frustrating thing whenever you don't control the media? But let's just not go there. Why are we assuming that the media is the one that determines the truth? Did you understand what that godless commie was saying? He was complaining about this narrative that's talking about the origins of the coronavirus coming out from a Wuhan lab, and he doesn't like that, clearly because it makes the godless commies in China look bad. But he's going to say that this fancy person and this fancy person and this scientist, all these people say that this is a dubious claim, to say that there's only two competing hypotheses and to choose the one that it came from Wuhan lab. Why are we appealing to the media? Why are we appealing to people with PhDs? Why are we, quoting people as though they are the ones who know where it comes from, who knows where this virus comes from? That's where my mind automatically goes. But I wanted to demonstrate something, because for those of you all, very few of you in this audience actually speak Mandarin or speak Cantonese or actually understand what that guy was saying in real life. I played for you the video with the correct subtexts. What I want to do is function as a godless commie with respect to what the godless commies were saying. So, correction, I'm not going to function as a godless commie. I'm going to function as a truth sayer to when the godless commies talk. So, watch this. This is that same video, slightly edited for accuracy purposes.
许多的国际专家学者纷纷对美国将溯源政治化的做法提出了质疑和批评。世卫组织专家组成员、澳大利亚科学家德怀尔表示，没有证据可以证明新冠病毒是从实验室泄露出去的。专家组的成员美国学者达萨克称，他和其他来武汉进行溯源研究的学者已经发布了大量且充分的资料，证明病毒最有可能来自自然界，来自实验室的可能性几乎不存在。美国所谓情报报告是政治性的，不具有科学性。哥伦比亚大学病毒学家拉斯姆森称，媒体将实验室泄露的阴谋论当成需要认真对待的研究方向，就好比在气候变化的议题中，将气候变化并不存在这种谣言当成是一种应该被认真对待的学说一样荒诞。美国的科普作家西格尔称，实验室泄露阴谋论之所以有市场，是因为人们以此来寻求安慰，尤其是那些搞砸了防疫工作的政客们。
That's right. Apologize to your local conspiracy theorists, which one of the things I like to do is to figure out the origins of words, like where do they come from? I mean, once I finally understood that all words are arbitrary, all words are just made up, like when you actually understand what that means Every single word that you say was made up by somebody, either by you or by somebody else. So whenever I realize that, I go, I want to know the history of this word to get the right context and better usage. And so conspiracy theorist, that's a very interesting word. Maybe you should look up where that comes from. We don't have the time. We're not going to do that today. Here is the next part of the laughs. This is a laughs / a update / a live local, like, yes! Watch this. This is just beautiful. Beautiful.
What you got out here regarding your police masks?
I'm not interested in talking.
Well, I'm not interested here. I've got a notice to serve you for the cease and desist order. Your masks are not only unethical, but they're unconstitutional. They violate several civil rights violations regarding...
I'm just going to leave the property now.
You're asking me to leave the property, a grocery store,
And stop recording.
and you don't want it to be recorded. Why is that, Bill?
Because it's a private property.
Private property, I thought we could shop here. Okay, well, we'll leave, but I need you to get that to your CEO, and I will be back in 7 days to see that all these fines are removed.
I love this so much. I love this so much. Here's why I love this. First of all, do you see like the effect of a piece of Do you see the effect of a piece of paper? Like, here's a lawyer standing there, and he's got a piece of paper, and he says stuff, and the person's like, oh no. It's a piece of paper. We have let our society become so litigious. For those of you at Harvard, it means people who litigate a lot. And people who litigate a lot are seeking a payday. They're not seeking principles. They're seeking to pad their pocket or line their purse or stuff their wallet with cash. They're not actually looking to maximize the ordering principles to build a good society. They're not actually seeking justice. They're wanting to screw somebody over by going to hire this lawyer saying, that guy touched me, and so that's assault, and so that... Anyway, that's a litigious society in which we live. And so because of that, one of the effects of a litigious society is people who aren't litigious, people who are normally going to like solve problems with their hands or work in the dirt or have a job or just look at someone else who disagrees with them and be like, yeah, I just don't care, right? One of the byproducts is that if you come up to someone with a piece of paper and you're like, I have here a cease and desist order, and you have to cease this. This is unethical. This is civil rights violation. It's unconstitutional, and this violates federal statutes, and you will be punished in a federal court of law up to a penalty of $75,000 per iteration of violation. And automatically, people are like, they don't know how to respond. And did you see what the Godless Commie store manager did? He appealed to private property. What are you gonna do that for, man? You're gonna let the Godless Commie tyrants tell you to put masks on your face and to control the behaviors of other people. And then when someone comes up to you and says, you can't do that because you are doing commerce, and as doing commerce, you are, participating in the public square. If you're participating in the public square, you can't discriminate against people for specific things like breathing. And if you discriminate against specific individual people for things like breathing, according to what God gave them, then whenever they hire an attorney and the attorneys come in and say, nope, you got to do this, you got to stop this, you're going to be like, well, private property, I can do what I want. Which one is it? Which one is it? Is it the worldview of maximizing individual liberty according to what God gives you? Private property, the ability to breathe, right? Is it those things? Or is your organizing principle what the godless commies tell you? In this case, if a godless commie tells you to order everyone to wear a mask, okay, we'll order everyone to wear a mask. But then whenever the overly litigious society comes in and says, hey, our person with the piece of paper says that you can't do that, it's like, it's like a brain malfunction. I just love the clashing of worldview. I love the head-on collision of arbitrariness, because it's like, how do they appeal to first principle? They are perfectly valid to compel their customers to behave by wearing masks, and they'll still keep doing business because they're safe. But then whenever someone else comes back and they use their different foundation to say, you can't do this, this is unethical, this is civil rights violation, this violates federal statute, and by the way, it's unconstitutional. So here's a countering perspective that contrasts with your view. So are you going to cohere with mine, or are you going to cohere with yours? And then what's the result? Well, I'm going to ask you to leave. Oh, really? What are you going to do? You're going to call the cops? It's just, it's so funny. I also love this because this is perfectly in line with make me. Or better yet, let's simplify it. No. 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 Just say no. Just say no. So I love that. I sped this next video. I'm going to play. It is a bunch of white bikers coming to black kids selling lemonade. I sped it up because it's 2 minutes long, so you're going to hear them. But just watch. And you tell me if we have an issue. You tell me if this neighborhood in this instance has an issue of white supremacy, the most lethal problem. According to Dear Leader of Godless Common Joe Biden, the most lethal threat to all of America is white supremacy. Well, watch this battlefield. Won't somebody please think of the children? Don't those black kids and those black kids' parents know that all those racists with their facial hair and their leather vests with their patches saying Harley Davidson and South Dakota and Sturgis riding up with their motorcycles, those are dangerous. They don't even have helmets. And then 2 of them are going to sit on one motorcycle. Don't they know that all those white supremacists are bringing up so much violence and that's a national threat? Why didn't they nuke this? Why didn't Godless Commie Dear Leader Joe Biden call up the B-2 bombers and nuke that neighborhood? Why didn't he use a direct energy weapon? Why not? I mean, I want to know why that war scene is happening. It's just people who watch that and don't call in direct energy weapons are racists. Because those black kids were assaulted via commerce and profit motive from all of those unsuspecting white supremacist, facial-haired, leather vest-wearing people. And that's the type of bigotry and homophobia, because there's homophobia there. I don't know where, but it's there. Don't doubt me or else you're a bigot. And there's probably transphobia. All of those evils were right there. Now, I'm purposefully doing this, clearly, to point out 2 things. One, the stupidity of how people will argue. Because the normal people will look at that and be like, that's just a neighborhood where people are showing up and it's like, that's a good day for those people selling neighborhood. Or selling lemonade, selling lemonade. Those kids are having a good day. That's what I would look at. That's why the first thing I was like, man, my kids need to go sell lemonade. But we don't live in suburbia. At the same time, though, you start to filter this through a political lens. Let's filter this through the political lens and see how our starting point is always going to drive us towards division. Let's say if you're a godless commie and you look at this and you say, black kids, white people, you're going to be like, oh no, there's a threat. Flip the coin. Let's say that you're a conservative, you're a patriot, you're a constitutional defender, you're a backer for Trump. You're going to look at this and be like, see, we ain't got no problem with racism here. Look at all those white people buying all this lemonade. Is this what Trump supporters sound like? Of course they do. Look at all those white people buying those black kids lemonade. That's proof that there's not racism there. And both sides are correct. Both sides are going to look at their own perceptions from their own beliefs. Well, Jarrin, why did you play this video? If you're gonna badmouth the godless commies, I tune into you so that I can hear you make fun of the godless commies. I don't need you, nor do I want you making fun of the people who are on our side, the patriots with the vests and all that kind of stuff. I'm not making fun of either side. I'm just saying recognize that how you look at this is going to drive your conclusion. If, however, you're a biker for Trump, leather-vested, constitutional, patriot person, and you look at this and it's like, see, there's no problem with racism. Well, then that's just an anecdote. What about all the other anecdotes where there's not bad stuff happening? Now, where I fall down on this is in that camp. I'm in the camp if I look at this and I say, this is what happens every day. How many times do you not hear the media report of a peaceful, maybe even loving interaction between people with different skin colors? It was reported today that there were 500,357,283 instances of nonviolence and peace, where one person with one skin color walked by another person with a different skin color, and nothing happened. Next up, how the rise of people breathing and not dying from COVID is on the rise. It's just, I mean, like, it really depends on your perspective. If the media is sensational, and I'm building into this, remember this video when we talk phase 1, when we talk about the Tulsa race false flag. The media is going to be able to drive the perspective of things. Now, you did not see where those people went after. You didn't see where they came from, right? You don't know anything except for what you saw in that clip, and then what you saw in that clip was only from the perspective of the clip that you saw. Why am I showing all of this? Well, one, I want to kind of poke the skunk and prep the battlefield, as it were, because in phase 1, I'm going to be talking about the Tulsa race false flag. At the same time, I always want to kind of beat the drum of understanding what your bias is. I begin every live stream with what my bias is. Bible-believing Christian, constitutional defending, patriotic, Rush baby, Lynn Wood, multiple-time endorsed Trump supporter. Why do I do that? So you know where I'm coming from. You know exactly what I'm going to, you don't know what I'm going to say, but you know where my bias is at, because I am aware enough to announce that bias, and so how I engage the world is going to be through that filter. So that's what I say. Okay, roll the rock. Let's get to the update. Godless commie Joe Biden is really just finishing up Barack Obama's term. This is a Breitbart article. Joe Biden finishing the job with my former staff. Pull quote. This is from there. It says, this is Obama. I think what we're seeing now is Joe and the administration are essentially finishing the job, he said in an interview with New York Times columnist Ezra Klein. And I think it'll be an interesting test. 90% of the folks who were there in my administration, they are continuing and building on the policies we talked about. Was that inflation? Is that open borders? What policy are we building on? Oh, the policy of fundamentally transforming America. Obama expressed his frustration that President Trump's administration interrupted his ability to get credit for the strength of the economy. There it is. Dang it, Trump! You took my glory. You took my glory. Quote, that clouds what I think would have been a more impactful shift in political views towards Democrats as a result of my presidency. Let me translate. Trump came in and made me look like a freaking moron. And now that he's gone, I get to recast the Trump presidency as, well, he was interrupting and he got the benefit of the doubt. He was the one that benefited from my policies. It's always interesting how the policies don't result into good things until after, or the policies don't result into bad things until after. It's like the day after you leave office, it's like, oh well, everything is now we're living in a hellhole now because I'm not in office. Again, this is a politician centric, a government centric perspective. But understand what Obama is actually doing. He's acknowledging the fact that Joe Biden is continuing the policies, duh. But then you got to think, what type of arrogance does this guy have to say that the current vice president or current president, who doesn't have his mind, is a continuation of your policy? I mean, we all acknowledge this, but why is Obama saying this? Obama's saying this there's all sorts of reasons. I think one, first and foremost, arrogance. He can't not be talked about, and whenever Trump was in office, he knew he couldn't say anything because Trump would just use that bully pulpit and insult him and make him look like garbage. So now, I mean, that's not really hard. But now that Biden's in office, Trump's out of office, Biden gets to have the glory of all these other things. And you notice how with all the economy in shambles, the borders are open, the culture sucks, it's going downhill. Did you notice that godless commie Joe Biden today outright said that he's going to start having to pay for abortions? Did you recognize that they said that they have to do away with the Hyde Amendment? The Hyde Amendment says that no taxpayer dollars can fund abortions. Well, if Joe Biden says that they have to give health care to everybody, if you give health care to everybody, there is no other option for medical services. And if there's no other option for medical services, then you have to get those medical services, which abortion here is a medical service. You have to get those medical services from the government. So they're up and outright just saying, hey, we're going to take y'all's guys' money and we're going to butcher babies with it because abortion is murder. Let's be logically consistent. Life begins at conception in the womb. There's even a spark. There's a flash. There's a flash that scientists don't know what happens. There's a flash, and when that flash happens, that's conception. Go look it up. But if you understand that, and that's the biblical case, because the Bible says you were knitted in his womb, or you were knitted in her womb, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. He knew you were before you were born. So the Bible makes the case for life begins at conception. And so that's a biblical perspective. That's a Christian perspective. But these godless commies have come out and said, well, if we're taking over healthcare, people won't have private insurance or their family doctor or concierge medicine. They'll have this plantation of government healthcare. And on this plantation of government healthcare, because everyone is on our plantation, we have to have access. I have no access. We have to have access to abortion. We have to have access to baby murder. And so because we have to have access to baby butchering, we have to have taxpayers pay for it. That's the line of thinking. That's the argumentation they're making, which is very convoluted. It's direct, and it's actually a valid perspective in the sense that he's making sense. Like, if the government controls all healthcare, then there are no other options for butchering your baby. And if there are no other options for butchering your baby, then you have to get that from the government. And if the government elevates baby butchering above life, which it does, and it has since 1973, then taxpayers are going to be on the hook for butchering babies, as if they already, haven't been already. I mean, this is the type of thinking. This is the world you live in. But the reason why I brought this up, the reason why I brought up the fact that Obama says that Joe Biden is finishing his first term, or his first 2 terms, is because godless commie dear leader Joe Biden said this in my neck of the woods today.
According to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
Yeah, I don't even understand that. Like, I don't know what a white supremacist is. But the thinking, and the reason why I bring this up, the reason why this is a update, is because now you have our government, you have the leaders in our government, I should say the people who are in charge of the government, saying that the majority of the country is evil. Jarrin, did you just equate the majority of the country being white supremacists? No. I'm saying that because the majority of the country has fair skin, people will be able to label anybody with fair skin that has a contrarian viewpoint to that as a white supremacist. In other words, if you have fair skin and you say that white supremacy is not a threat, not a risk, not a bad thing, then people in government, the Department of Defense, the Department of Defense is already trying to weed out people who look like this. And they've already announced that this is a major problem, that and climate change. But if the government is already trying to weed these people out, then anyone who disagrees with them is a threat. We have now migrated microaggressions from the individual level and prevalent on college campuses, and we've imported it into the Pentagon, and we've imported it into the fake White House. And so if this is the case, then you have to understand that what a microaggression is has now just become governmental sensibility. The government is now going to have its own sensibilities indexed to people who are offended by the fact that you said or did not say something, that you did mean or did not mean something. So if you can have a microaggression as an individual on a college campus because you are a snowflake or you're a godless commie or you're a Marxist or an evolutionist or whatever, because your worldview sucks, if your worldview sucks and you can be offended, that was the limitation of it. And then it graduated into getting canceled. What do you think the next evolution of getting canceled is? Getting nuked. Your government putting you in a FEMA camp. Your government labeling you as a terrorist. You know someone else they labeled as a terrorist? They labeled General Flynn as a terrorist. General Flynn, over the weekend, went to this thing in Texas, this Dallas thing, and was asked by a member of the audience, hey, why can't what happened in Myanmar, or or the country that's not China, the country that's next to, Bangladesh, or wherever it is, some Asia country, right? Some Asia country I don't know. Right. So sorry folks, I love that. The audience member asked General Flynn, hey, why can't the thing that happened to Myanmar happen here? Quick details, Smartmatic and voter fraud happened in Myanmar, and the military overthrew the civilian leaders who are also in cahoots with the Clintons and basically everybody who's in cahoots with George Soros. And when the military overthrew them, the military is now redoing the elections, implemented martial law, and is basically reinstituting prima nocta. No, they're reinstituting and legal and fair elections. And so the people who are in the Patriot movement believe that Donald Trump won because he did, because we all saw the election stop on November 3rd. And so if that's the case, then they want Trump to come back. Well, if they believe that, they asked General Flynn the question, can this happen? And his response was, yeah, sure, I don't see why not. It should. And so people jumped on that. Oh boy, did they jump on that. That's from the Huffington Puffington Post, as Rush Limbaugh would say. And then this piece today from Insider magazine said that, a colonel fired by Trump offered to prosecute Michael Flynn by court-martialing for calling a military coup in the U.S. Pull quote. This is going to be very important. Watch this. Who is this colonel fired by Trump? Do you not see how the media is bolstering the case that because this colonel was fired by Trump, now he wants to prosecute Michael Flynn? Don't you see how that is a subtle positioning? That this guy has been afflicted by Trump, therefore he is righteous in his legal opinion and in his pursuit to go after Flynn. Don't you see how those two things marry up? And that's how they do it. Just right there, little quick. A colonel fired by Trump offered to prosecute Michael Flynn. How about a colonel who puts on his right shoe first is offered to prosecute Michael Flynn by courts-martial? Does it matter that he was fired by Trump? Does it matter that he puts his right shoe on first? Of course it does. Why? Because Michael Flynn is going to be threatened by Vindman. Vindman is the twin brother of Alexander Vindman, the retired Army lieutenant colonel who came to prominence in 2019 after testifying before Congress. That's right. Yevgeny Vindman is the guy that wants to prosecute and court-martial Michael Flynn. Why is this important? Because he's got political motive. His political motive is that Flynn sucks and Trump sucks, and so they're going to try to prosecute this guy. I should go into more depth about what this means, but I have so much updates to go. Just suffice it to say that people who do swear an oath to the Constitution are still subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice whenever they're out, because they swear the oath and the oath doesn't go away. At the same time, though, that's got to be a balance between freedom of speech versus acts of sedition. And so this is where people, again, are just very willy-nilly with alleging treason, alleging sedition, and by someone in a crowd asking Mike Flynn if he thinks Myanmar or what happened in Myanmar with the military taking over the country should happen here, and General Flynn says, yeah, it should. Him expressing that opinion doesn't mean that that's him trying to organize that. And if you're going to try to say indirectly that because he has a lot of people pay attention to him, and so therefore him saying that is de facto him planning, orchestrating, rallying up, and otherwise encouraging people to do stuff, that doesn't connect. But you understand that that's how these godless commies think. Remember whenever President Trump was at the White House having a speech to the people in D.C. on January 6th, and then he says, yeah, come to D.C., I want to talk to you. And then the thing happened, the insurrection happened. People are going after the January 6th Commission, which 34 Republicans voted for, by the way, in the House. The January 6th Commission, which is, this godless commie anti-Trump charade where they can characterize what happened on January 6th as the same as what happened on 9/11. So they can go after Trump, so they can arrest him. I'm still not convinced that President Trump isn't going to be arrested, if you know what I mean. I can get in that later on this week. I have so many things that could be like entire shows by themselves. This is one. Just know that my point here is that the godless commies are starting to take your opinion and they're trying to take your contrarian thought as an act of war. That's what they're trying to do. That's the point I'm trying to make. Also, in unrelated news, last year, there was a killer drone that hunted down a human target without being told to. This was reported a couple days ago, and this happened last year. Pull quote from this article says, the drones were operating highly effective autonomous mode. That sounds safe. That required no human controller, and the report notes. This report is from the UN Council on Human Rights, the same ones that brought to you the vaccines. The lethal autonomous weapon systems were programmed to attack targets without requiring data connectivity between the operator and the munition. You mean that something can operate without being programmed or connected? Kind of like our machines, our voting machines. In effect, a true fire, forget, and find capability, suggesting the drones attacked on their own. Why is this important? Warfare is going to be graduated. It's going to be highly technical, very specific, very lethal, and quick. I don't think that you will ever have the two massive bodies of dudes running at each other, swinging their swords, as in Bravehearts, ever again, until someone uses an EMP. And when they do that, they neutralize everything else. And so I think that's actually going to be one of the, again, this could be an entire episode by itself. But in my mind, I have thinking, because you've got the democratization of technology with the specific emphasis of military research and development, you're going to have so many lethal and effective ways of killing people, but they're all going to share electricity. They're all going to share power. And so if someone does an EMP, you immediately go night like that. And so if the core competence of your military has been exchanged for technology or data or circuitry or gadgets, then whenever you nuke the gadgets with an electromagnetic pulse, and that won't work because an EMP fries it all, then people, when they do war, will naturally have to rewind the clock all the way back to their base level of competence, which if they have guns, they can shoot guns. But what happens whenever you don't have bullets, all that kind of stuff. More to follow on the bullet company, by the way. It's just interesting because, in the scriptures, it talks about Armageddon. It talks about people riding horses. I don't know if that's horses. I don't know if that's tanks. It's just interesting to see how things get interpreted. I also warned you, hey, this is the world's first case of human infection, H10N3 bird flu recorded in China. Now, are we going to have someone from China tell us that it's not from China? Or are we going to have someone tell us that it is from China? Stands to reason that if this is the world's first case of human infection with bird flu from China, then maybe we need to think about what's going on in China. Oh, I just love that. Also, there is an Indian variant. Remember that word variant, the V word? Not the daisy, but remember that variant word? Look at that. Highly contagious India COVID variant spreading rapidly in the U.S. This is from today. Pull quote says, the data. Here, let me read this like a scientist. The data revealed that the variant, which experts suspect is 60% more transmissible, reached its high of 7% of samples sequenced on May 26. The World Health Organization, I wonder who's behind them. Who is behind the World Health Organization? All day, folks. Last week classified the variant as being one of global concern and requiring heightened tracking and analysis. So the World Health Organization is advising this is a global concern requiring heightened, so are we going to be talking higher than grocery stores requiring masks? Or are we going to talk about heightened before, you have to have daisies before you can go anywhere? Heightened? Can we get more heightened than that? Yes, we can. But look at that. Tracking and analysis. So they're going to know where you're at, and they're going to think about where you're at. There is some available information to suggest increased transmissibility. Of course it's increasingly transmittable, because we wouldn't be reporting on something if it wasn't more easily to be transmitted. The only question I have, though, and this is important, does it still have that death rate? Does it still kill this many people? Because I want to know, what's it called? Writ of habeas corpus. The writ of habeas corpus is show me the body. Show me the bodies. Stack them up. I want to see them. I want to see mountains and gobs of bodies before we start shutting down anything ever again. Before you shut down my grocery store, before you shut down my barbershop, before you shut down my gun stores, before you shut down stuff, show me the stacks of bodies. And not the stacks of bodies when they're halfway out of the bag and they're smoking because they don't think they're being recorded. Show me the stacks of bodies legitimate. And just throw them over a cliff. That way when they thud, I know they're not acting. Jarrin, that's pretty macabre. Well, I am a veteran. I do have a dark sense of humor, but also think about the world that we're in. These people are going to tell you, oh no, there's an Indian variant. Oh no, there's a highly contagious Indian COVID variant in the United States. It's 7% of the cases. We're going to need heightened tracking and analysis. Oh, you're absolutely right. Maybe we should just give up all of our freedoms. Which eye do you want? Which eye do you need to pluck out to put in the medical device so you can track me and analyze so I don't die from something that has this type of death rate? It's like, come on. All I want to do is comply. Remember the state senator from Arizona that I introduced you to, Miss Wendy Rogers? You need to go find her, follow her on Telegram. But look at what she wrote today. I thought this was funny. She's just trolling now. They never thought we would audit everything forensically. We called their bluff. Now they are shaking and getting no sleep, asking about which prisons are the nicest, etc. Oh, Wendy. Good job. Good job. Good job. And on that, I want to play a video. We can probably talk about this tomorrow. I want to play it, introduce it, tease it slightly, then we'll get to phase one.
Let's just say that we could prove somehow or another in court, this makes it to the Supreme Court or whatever, and it's proven that the election was taken away from Trump. What would the outcome of that be? What do you do? Do they kick Biden out and put Trump in? What would happen?
Well, the Constitution provides for that. So all we need, and what Mike, and it's not just Mike's team, by the way. There are several other teams around the country. We're all working together. We combine legal resources, financial resources. There are a lot of us teams working together. What we are working for is to have, there's multiple strategies, but one of the strategies is we need 3 states to take back their electors, to recall their electors. So say, for example, I just mentioned Pennsylvania. Say that Pennsylvania finally comes clean and says, yes, our election was completely corrupted. We agree. We admit it. We're decertifying our election. We're bringing back our electors. Okay, so that's one state. If you can get 2 more states with enough electors from the Electoral College, then Biden would have less than 270 Electoral College votes. The Constitution provides for that. If either party doesn't have 270 Electoral College votes, it automatically goes to the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment says that you go to each state gets one vote plus the president of the Senate. So, and the vote for each state is decided by the majority vote in that state. So Trump had 37 states with a majority. So even if he didn't, I think Kamala Harris is not going to vote for him. So if you had, it would be 37 to 14. It would be 37 to 14, and Trump's the president again. And that's constitutional. That's what the Constitution says right there. And that's just one strategy.
This is an example of something that I want to be true, but I don't believe. This is an example of something that I would like to see happen, but I don't think. And we'll talk about this maybe tomorrow. It depends on the news. But in short, the argument I would make, and again, you got to acknowledge your bias. I want this to be true, but the argument I would make is when you certify the election at your state level and you send it out and your electors get certified at the Capitol like they did on January 6th, that is the process that the 12th Amendment is speaking about. And so what would have to be litigated is the timeliness of the issue, which isn't the issue of decertifying the states. This would be a quo warranto, which is exactly what I've been saying. The quo warranto is the legal path. The quo warranto is by what authority do you take office. Now, if it were found that the audits revealed that there was fraudulent happenings in election and the election results were wrong in several of those states doing audits, then could the state legislatures issue a quo warranto to decertify their election, withdraw their electors, and thus invalidate the election? Sure, I guess. It's never happened. It's unprecedented. But just remember, anything that's unprecedented just means that it's never happened before. It doesn't mean it can't happen. I mean, there was a time when God hadn't created anything, and then he did create everything. So, at some point, unprecedented doesn't matter because something can happen. Well, at the same time, I think that everybody and their dog would make the argument, well, we just got to move on. We just got to move on. Be weary of the people who say, just move on, we'll get them next time. Because what happened in 2020 was they undermined what the vote is. And if you undermine what the vote is and what it represents, and in short, if you haven't listened to me for a while, The vote is the peaceful. It's how the people peacefully demonstrate their will. It's how people peacefully communicate what they want. Now, if you undermine how people peacefully communicate what they want, you know where I'm going with this. So if people can't peacefully communicate what they want, how are they going to communicate what they want? So it would be in the interest of everybody to make sure that people could peacefully communicate what they want and to honor that wherever the truth takes us. All right, let's roll the rock and get to phase 1. Phase 1. This is going on in Tulsa right now. Yeah, Black Power. Black Power. Black Power. That's right, Black Power. This is also going on. Well, this has happened a couple days ago. This was, I think, Friday in Tulsa.
All streets! All streets! All streets! All streets! All land! All land! All land!
Hey, how you doing?
All streets!
Now I see that. I see the first clip, and I'm like, okay. How many times does it take to say Black Power before people are like, you know what? Yeah, Black Power. Yeah, absolutely. You know, you've said it. The first 8 million times you said it, I was like, oh, this is annoying. But the 8 millionth and one time you said it, I was just like, makes so much sense. It's so brilliant. It's just like, I was like, no, that's a bad idea. And then you said it again, and I was like, you're right, Black Power. And so Black Power, of course, Black Power. So, oh man, I forgot. If you want a good laugh, you need to go look up Dave Chappelle's Clayton Bigsby. It's the black white supremacist. He's a blind guy who it's a sketch comedy from the Chappelle Show back in 2003 or 4. But the sketch comedy show is that this Dave Chappelle plays a black guy who is a white supremacist but is blind, so he doesn't know he's black. And so he goes around all these KKK rallies talking about how black people are bad, but he's black. And he wears a hood over his face. He wears the Ku Klux Klan hood. And at the very end, they're like, we want to see your face. And so he takes his hood off, and they're like, and then he divorces his wife because she loved black people. It's funny. It is like all Dave Chappelle stuff, just... It's funny. I should say most of his stuff until he got political. But anyway, I wanted to load that in. I did not load it in. But listen, for me, I try to begin my thinking with the Bible. I hear anything about black and white, I'm just like, again, maybe because I've ascended to a higher dimension, because my vibes are good, right? Because I've had the consciousness increase me to a higher level. All of that is sarcasm, by the way. That's garbage. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I don't believe in ascending to a higher dimension or vibes or any of that stuff. I was making fun of it because there are going to be people who are like, he's a guy that believes in vibes and ascending. And there's also going to be people who are like, oh, he believes in vibes and ascending. It's like, you're going to say the same thing with two different perspectives. No, I believe the Bible. The Bible's true. How do I know stuff? Because the Bible says. It's not bad to have circular reasoning at your ultimate authority, because if your ultimate authority had to appeal to a different authority, your ultimate authority is no longer ultimate. Ultimate authority is, by definition, self-referential. God doesn't need to appeal to anything not God to prove that he is God. If God had to appeal to Jarrin, hey Jarrin, am I God? Yeah, God, you're God. Okay, yeah, cool, thanks, man. No, that would mean that God's would appeal to Jarrin and not... Anyway, so self-referential is not an issue in circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is required when you're talking about your epistemic authority. Okay? So, didn't mean to go down that path, but I just have to wire some things tight, because you're always going to get some stupid people on the internet that are like, let me take what you said and twist it, or let me not hear sarcasm and just impute upon you the worst of all motives of all kind. So the last minute was for you, internet smart person. But whenever I hear black and white stuff, I'm just tired of it. It just loses its power. And I guess images of people walking around in Tulsa with firearms, not doing anything, I'm just like, okay, yeah, roger that. Look at those Americans exercising their God-given rights. Good. Can I sell you ammo? Can I sell you a firearm? Do you want more? Do you want a bigger magazine? Do you how can I help you? No, I wouldn't sell to those people. No, I don't even know if their weapons are real, by the way. I mean, you've seen the videos where the magazine is in backwards, or the chamber's locked to the rear and the chamber's cleared, like there's no weapon, or it was a rubber ducky, so it was like it was a fake rifle, it was a fake firearm, as like a training aid. I've seen those things before, but that didn't look like a lethal, effective, coordinated fighting force with a purpose. That looked like something designed for shock value. So then you got to think. I think this is Tulsa, which is in Oklahoma. The vast majority of the population is white, looks like me. And so you're going to have a small number of people walk in a Oklahoma town and say Black Power and this is our land. Okay. Sure. Have at it. Doesn't affect me at all. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't rob anybody. As far as I know, they didn't do anything illegal. What do I care? And therein lies the issue. And we'll play that second video again. Watch the guy in the middle of the street with the camera. And that's what I'm getting at with this whole phase 1. Watch the guy in the middle of the street with the camera.
All street! All street! All street! All land! All land! All land!
Hey, how you doing?
All street!
This is just to get people to react. This is just to get people to get mad. And so because it doesn't make me mad, I'm allowed, or I'm able, I should say, not allowed. Because I begin my thinking with the Bible, I look at this and I say that doesn't make me upset. It doesn't make me upset. It's supposed to make me upset, which is why those people with the cameras are there. But if you think about it, how absurd is it that they're walking in the middle of the street, whereas the people who are marching are walking on the sidewalk? Let me take this down to like first gear. Those people had to apply for a permit. They could only go on a specific route at a specific time of the day to do what they're thinking. So they were law-abiding, and they were appealing to the process to say whatever stupid message they wanted to. And I think it's stupid because I think Black Power is a evil, communist-driven, anti-gospel message. Just as it would be if it was white power, or yellow power, or red power, or whatever power. Except for blue. I love the color blue. Why? We're not going to say that. Why does God love the infantry? Never mind. What makes the green grass grow? Sorry, that's military stuff. But whenever I look at this message, I look at the people and I see them obeying the law. But the presentation of the information is to shock people into what? Anger? Into action? To get them to do what? You're going to come to Tulsa in a state with like 75, 80% white folk, country folk. Most of us have firearms. I don't. They're all replicas. I have no real weapons, none whatsoever. I'm the safest person, safest place in the entire world. You understand I have to keep that charade up because at this point there's people watching me who would probably look to what I say and say, oh, look at that guy. He's a terrorist. I'm not a terrorist. I love everything Joe Biden says. I love everything the godless commies say. I completely agree with it. Give me all the daisies in the world. Jab, 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 jab. Anyway, I want my arms to be like the Morse code, naval vessel in World War II. The presentation of this information is designed to get people to do something. Cross-apply this to the Tulsa race riot or massacre. Whenever I was growing up, it was called the Tulsa race riot. Now it's called the Tulsa race massacre. And therein lies the beginning of my analysis. Words mean things. They're used to get an effect. When I was growing up, it was called the riot. Now it's called the massacre. Riot is not as vicious as massacre. Massacre invokes ideas and concepts like Holocaust and slavery or blood splatter murder, axe murdering seen all over the place. You have different images in your head with massacre than you do with riot. And so the Tulsa race riot is now called the Tulsa race massacre. But let's go back in time. Let's go back in time 64 years before time began, May 30th, 1921. That's right. Time began May 30th, 1985, because that was when I was born. So, May 30th, 1921, a young man with dark skin does something to a white woman or a woman with fair skin. The woman with fair skin yells. That yell is heard by other people. Other people then say they saw the dark-skinned guy run away. It was reported. The sheriff arrested the dark-skinned person and held him in the courthouse. Well, word got out. How did the word get out? We'll get into that in a second. But word got out that the dark-skinned person assaulted the white-skinned girl or light-skinned girl. And so from that, an editorial was published in a Tulsa newspaper that told everybody about what happened. Do you think that people naturally heard about it because they had TikTok and Facebook Live and streaming services back then? Do you think that someone tweeted about it as soon as it happened? No. The newspaper, the media, wrote something in order to do what? To get an emotional response. It's called sensationalism, yellow journalism, whatever you want to call it. It's godless communism. It's a false flag. The false flag was what? You had a prosperous, otherwise thriving, peaceful community, Tulsa, Oklahoma, booming oil capital of the world. Tulsa was the oil capital of the world in 1921 at this time. Booming prosperity all over the place. Not high crime rates. Black people over here, white people over there. We got a bunch of Indians all over the place. It's like, okay, we got a hodgepodge of all sorts of folks, but we ain't a bunch of massacring people. In fact, the year before, in 1920, a white dude was lynched. Look it up. A white guy was lynched. And so because a white guy was lynched, the sheriff at the time was like, hey, I'm not going to have none of that nowhere. And so whenever white people read the editorial by the newspaper and went to the sheriff and said, give us that dark-skinned dude. We want justice. The sheriff, look it up, locked it down, gave orders to the deputies to shoot anybody on sight who came against them. Well, whenever the white folks went to the sheriff and went to the courthouse and said, give us that dark-skinned folk, guess what happened? It was reported to the black folks that the white folks were trying to bust out the black kid that was in jail so they could hang him, so they could lynch him. So what did the dark-skinned folks do? They grabbed a bunch of guns. They brought their guns down to the courthouse. Now then what happened? A fight ensued. No one knows what happened. No one knows who fired the first shot. But at the end of that very first skirmish, you had more light-skinned people dead than you had dark-skinned people dead. But you had people dead. And then what happened? Well, just like those videos when you got folks walking through going, it's our land, black power. It's like, you can say that until people outnumber you like 1,000 to 1. And then you're going to get beat. You're going to get burned. You're going to get killed. Bad things are going to happen to you. And that's what happened. The Tulsa Race Riot Massacre was a false flag. It was a false flag driven and trumped up by the media. Had the media never written its story, had the media never reported anything, you wouldn't have had anything happen. Because people wouldn't have known about it. They didn't have the connectivity. They didn't have the ideas like we do today. And the sheriff took the correct stand. The white sheriff took the correct stand to tell the white people, get out of here. I'm going to tell my deputies to shoot on sight if you come inside. And the white people are like, okay, I'm out. My whole point on all this is you understand how when people don't think with the Bible, they don't see image bearers of God as image bearers of God. The media for decades, probably over a century now, has been talking to people in America according to their skin color, not according to who made them. If people speak about other people according to who makes them instead of what they look like, then we will have different outcomes. Let's tell that story again using image bearer of God instead of colors. Do you know that there was this young man who's an image bearer of God, and he did something to this other image bearer of God? That image bearer of God screeched out, and another image bearer of God heard that screech and saw the first image bearer of God running away. And when the first image bearer of God was running away, they arrested him and put him in jail, guarded by other image bearers. I mean, I could go on, folks. You get my point. You get the point that whenever you see people as who made them, if you see people not according to the flesh, 2 Corinthians 5:16, we no longer regard people according to the flesh. Christians, people who believe the Bible, regard people according to who made them. But more important than that, we regard people according to if they're lost or found, if they're saved or going to go to hell. Why is that so important? Because you or other people might think that the Tulsa Race Massacre was the worst thing ever. And by the way, think about this. The Tulsa Race Massacre still has political clout. It still got his legs. Joe Biden was in Tulsa today for the 100th anniversary. That's right, 100 years ago this thing happened. Why not celebrate it 99 years or 101 years? Why not celebrate it at 82? Why not celebrate it at 113? Why is 100 the year that we have to celebrate this? We are here to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, because we want people to get mad. What's the point? What's the point? The point is to propagate one version of the story, which is a bunch of white people killed a bunch of black people. Which, yeah, that happened. But those white people were made by God. Those black people were made by God. And they were both positioned against themselves because their information, the war for the mind, in through the eyes, in through the ears, was driven by some godless commie editorial at the newspaper in Tulsa saying, these black people raped this girl, so y'all white guys better go up and get her, or better go up and get him. And so people, not thinking biblically, are like, yeah, let's go get that black guy. And so they went and got the black guy. And so they try to go get him. And so I look at this and I just say it's all stupid, because if you don't take this issue to the cross, if you don't take it through the Bible, if you don't look at it as this, what's the solution? Which you gonna have dark-skinned people today tell me, a light-skinned person here in Oklahoma, Tulsa's like 25 miles that way. You're gonna have people come to me and tell me that I owe them money for something I didn't do to them? Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll see how that happens. But you're gonna have them tell me that I'm guilty and that I've benefited off of systems of oppression and institutions of injustice because of what happened way back then? Why don't they take the responsibility of where they are now? I read there's a guy going to the Jackson Lohmeyer thing with General Flynn on June 26th. His name is Nick Vujicic. He's an Australian dude. Family's from Yugoslavia. That's why he's got a weird name. Dude was born without arms or legs. Now, do you think he's going to be like, oh man, I'm oppressed because I don't have arms or legs? It's like, no. The guy has a very optimistic outlook. He's a Christian, by the way. He has a very optimistic outlook, and he's like, hey, I get to glorify God. I get to use the fact that my body is the way that it is to draw attention to the fact that no matter how bad you think you have it, you can always glorify God. And that's the issue. The godless commies want to orient your thinking in your eyes, in your ears. They want to orient your thinking always to division, always to hate, always to how are we different from each other. And one of the easiest ways they can do it is they can take God's creativity, skin color, they can take the differences that God made, and they can flip it on its head and use it as a weapon. And if people accept these words like racism, which I've told you was popularized by Charles Darwin, he didn't invent it, he popularized it, on the origin of species and the preservation of preferred races. Charles Darwin hated God. Because he hated God, he wanted to design a worldview where he didn't have to believe in God. Why? Because he didn't want to believe in Jesus. Now, some people say he had a deathbed conversion, and that's my prayer. I'd like to see him in heaven someday, and I could, hear him admit that he had a horrible, stupid, garbage, no good, very bad idea. But if he didn't accept the gospel, then he's burning in hell and he'll be cast in the lake of fire forever, as will you if you don't believe the gospel. But Charles Darwin propagated this idea that black people are closer related to monkeys. And so if you believe in racism, you're importing those Darwinian presuppositions insofar as you're affirming a worldview that acknowledges that black people are closer to monkeys. So if people today who are on the side of black people, what was it, God's coming Joe Biden? What was it, God's coming Joe Biden?
According to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
Yeah. He's perpetuating Darwinian presupposition. Do you not understand how that's a godless position? That's why I call them godless commies. They don't think biblically. They might confess Christ. They might say that they have a religion or a higher power, Christ consciousness, or whatever kind of new age crap that's going on, but they're not actually thinking biblically. The Bible doesn't specify according to skin color. That talks about culture, but culture is more divided by language. That's Genesis 11, Genesis 12, not about skin color. It can talk about skin color, but people don't think about people according to, oh, look, you're a black guy, I'm a white guy, we hate each other. This is just stupid. And I get increasingly frustrated because the more things I see that, it's just like, oh, did you know that these black people walked through the streets and they had weapons with black garments on, and so they were saying black power, so we should not like them, right? Because they suck, right? And you're a white guy and you're a white supremacist and you're a Trump supporter, right? I guess I'm weird, folks. I just don't see that. I obviously I see colors, but I just don't care. I just don't care. Well, Jarrin, that's white privilege. It's privilege to tell me I'm white privileged. Because the privilege in telling me I'm white privileged is to assume that all the bad interpretations of reality are my own. Is to assume that the transgressions that you perceive, not me, that the transgressions you perceive are somehow my fault because of neglect or ignorance or just me not wanting to do something about it. Why don't you put that mirror up and look right in it? Why don't you pull that log out of your eye before you check the speck in mine? See, the issue is pride. It's arrogance. I mean, the fact this is June 1 and people call this Pride Month? No, this is the month where people just direct more attention to fornication. They direct more attention to sodomites and catamites and people who are, all sorts of sexually indulgent people. Why is that? Because sexual liberation is a form of political control. And maybe we talk about this week too. Talk about the integration of feminism and how sex and gender has been used to wrangle and compel speech, has been able to design the way that you choose what pathway, not only for behavior, but speech and thought. And so if they can eliminate words based on punishing behaviors, they can actually erase neural pathways in your brain, because as soon as you do that, it's like a rat or a dog with a electric collar. It's like, oh, I'm not going to go down that way. I'm not going to talk about the fact that they're image bearers of God, because as soon as I say that they're image bearers of God, they're going to accuse me of white privilege, because only white people would have say that I don't see color. Let's think biblically, because that's a racist position. And who is the people from New York? The New York Times wrote an article a couple days ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, saying that it is white to be Christian. Jesus wasn't a white dude. He was a poor Jew. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. And maybe I am. And that's why I want to go to phase 2 and introduce you to my good friend, Blind Jarrin. I've been thinking about this all day, folks. As you know, I've studied Rush Limbaugh for years. And Rush Limbaugh would never have guests on his show. In fact, I've had multiple people ask me to interview them or to direct this audience there. I've had other people want to be on the show. I don't do guests. Because I've designed this show to be a monologue, and I will fail or succeed based on that and that alone. Partly because I don't want to have to always, okay, you want to be on my show, and then scheduling and technical stuff. I mean, how many times do I screw up the technical stuff? Do you really think that I could build a show that required other people, which would magnify the technical responsibilities every day? Do you really think I could pull that off? Come on now. No, of course not. Let's not give me that much credit. Okay, but today I'm going to break my own rule. I'm going to break my own rule because I have here a good friend of mine. He doesn't read the news, so he doesn't know any of the goings on in the world. And he's been blind his entire life, just a birth defect. He's never, he's never seen anything before, completely blind. I want to note one thing here. I want to say, I have one note that I need to put out to the audience. This segment is going to be full of this. Okay, so that's what this is, but I'm doing this to illustrate. So I'm bringing on my friend to illustrate the absurdity of the day and age that we live in. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to welcome, it's the first time ever, Blind Jarrin. Blind Jarrin, how are you? Well, I'm doing good, Jarrin. How are you? Oh, I'm fine, Blind Jarrin. Thanks for coming in. It's been a great honor to know you. You're a good friend of mine. I appreciate you being here. And how did you follow the direction that I gave you because you're blind? How did you get to the Homestead? Well, I guess you can say that I just kind of have a sense of finding the right way of getting to the right place. But Thanks for having me. You know, isn't that what everyone always says on podcasts? As soon as someone welcomes someone else, they always say, thanks for having me on, as though they don't know any other kind of intro filler words. They can't say anything profound. They just have to say, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've noticed that. That's actually pretty interesting. You think a lot like me, man. You're really good looking too. You have a glorious beard. Hey, I want to talk to you, Quantum Beard. I want to talk to you about this Tulsa race massacre. Now, when you say massacre, how many people were killed? The numbers are disputed, but no one really knows because they didn't really actually count all the bodies back then. There are some people who think that there are massive graves of black people, and no one really knows. What do you mean by black people? Oh, that's right. You're blind. You don't know. So every person has different skin colors. Some could be different shades of generally the same color. And then other people could just have like completely different skin colors, like completely opposite skin colors. So that's why. And so whenever I say black people, I mean people who, well, their skin's really brown, like it's mostly brown, but people call them black because that's normally what they've called. So most people call them black, even though they're really technically probably brownish skin colored, but we call them black because they're not white. And the people who have white skin really aren't actually white. They're just not black. So everyone's got skin, but they've all got different colors, and so that's what there's the people who, so it's black people. Does that make sense? Well, having never seen color, I don't know why you would want to determine, at least to talk to me about who people are based on a skin color, because if I can't see it, it kind of loses significance. I don't really understand what you mean. Can you try to do a better job of describing these people so I could have a better understanding of an idea of who they are? I mean, if I've never seen color, why would you try to advance to me the color of their skin as being the thing that I'm trying to understand them by? How could I understand something I can't perceive? Oh, that's an insightful question there, Blind Jarrin. I guess for me, let's try this because, I read the Bible, I'm a Christian. Let's say image bearers of God. There are some image bearers of God who don't like other image bearers of God. Yeah, isn't that because we live in a fallen world and there's a such thing as sin? Well, right, but like most people don't actually like to talk about sin. They'd much rather talk about, politics, because politics for some reason holds their attention. And one of the ways we talk about politics, we don't talk about sin in politics, of course, because that would just be weird and people would turn you off and you'd lose viewership. But some people like to, they like to do that because it keeps up the ratings. Like I could see someone doing kind of a gimmicky, stupid, kind of third person, cliched sketch comedy to try to make a point that's really absurd that only a few people will try to get. Does that make sense? Oh yeah, no, I get that. It's just, I don't want to waste my time, thinking about people in any other way than besides what God refers to them as. I don't know if God ever referred to people according to their skin color. That'd be kind of superficial of God. Don't you think that he would kind of offend himself if he were to only identify a very small part of these people he spent all his time on? I mean, you don't have to be blind to be able to see that, Oh, that's great, Blind Jarrin. But hey, I feel really kind of awkward right now. Let's get back to the issue. The issue is how, you're an expert. You got a PhD in stuff of physics, in quantum stuffology. You have a PhD in quantum stuffology, and I was going to ask if what you think we could do to solve this problem of racism in America. Racism being the difference between black and white people and the systemic injustices of the United States. How do we solve systematic racism? What do you mean by systematic? Well, no one really knows, but it's basically anything that people who have black skin and the people who hate their white skin say it is. So like if someone who's got light skin agrees with people who's got dark skin about how people who have light skin are bad and they are privileged because they somehow have something that the people with dark skin want, then if the people with the dark skin want that, that's not coveting. It's actually the fact that the system that the white-skinned people made to help themselves, even though the people who are currently beneficiaries of that system weren't alive when the systems were designed. And so the people who have the white skin don't know that they're the ones that are actually oppressing the people with the black skin. And so the people with the black skin have said that that's systemic because it's so much part of who people are and what things are that there's really no way to tell. So does that make sense? No. I don't watch the media. I don't listen to podcasts because they all kind of just, I turned them all off whenever they were just trying to divide people according to stupid, arbitrary political titles and labels. But is this what people do for entertainment? Is this what people pay attention to all the time? Well, I mean, not all the time. Sometimes we focus on LGBTQ. What's LGBTQ? Oh, well, it stands for lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, or transitioning and queer. Transgender and queer. Why would people have an acronym for sexual immorality and sexual sin? Why don't we just call that sexual sin? Well, Blind Jarrin is another good, insightful question. You have wisdom beyond your eyesight to be able to see things clearly. I just don't know the answers to those questions. Why don't you just go ahead and accept my premise, and look at people in categories according to their skin colors? Why don't you just go ahead and accept my premise that people who claim that they're labeled in an LGBTQ, arbitrary, sexually indulgent, fornicating focused category, why don't you just accept that premise? It'd be a lot easier to talk about politics if we just naturally accepted the words and the labels that people identify themselves as. Well, that'd be great. I'm going to identify as vision capable. But you're not vision capable because you're blind, Blind Jarrin. Isn't that why you're called Blind Jarrin? Well, yeah, I'm called Blind Jarrin because I always like objective truth to be obvious. But I also understand that if I'm understanding your position, you're saying that whatever these people want to be, they just say that they are according to their own definition. And if that's the case, it's true. Is that right? If someone just wants to be whatever, then that they say it and that's true? Well, yes, generally true. The only people who can't do it are the people who have white skin, are Christian, aren't homosexual, and basically people who basically believe the Bible and are white. And then if you're not white, but you believe the Bible, and so therefore it makes your beliefs align with the people who are white and believe the Bible because, you're all one spirit, because the Holy Spirit's in all the church. It doesn't matter what you look like or where you come from or how poor you are, how fat you are, how stupid you are, because you're all going to go to heaven because God doesn't discriminate, doesn't show partiality. All tribes, tongues, and peoples will be in heaven. So if you push that to the side, anything like that, just not white people who believe the Bible, basically. Oh, well, if that's the case, then yeah, I'm vision capable because I'm just going to use their ability to declare who they are. So we'll just go with that. I can see everything, folks. Oh, hold on. Let me finish the interview. Hey, thank you, Blind Jarrin. I just want to direct everyone. How can people get a hold of you? How can they find out more about you? Well, if I'm not on social media because I think it's all stupid and dumb. But why don't they just go ahead and follow you? They can find it in the links below, right? Didn't I hear you say that before? Yeah, thanks, Jarrin. One last question. Yeah, what's that? Do you think that all the bad stuff that's happened to you has happened to you because you're blind? No, I think the bad stuff that happens to me is because we live in a sinful world. But because Jesus Christ died on the cross and he rose from the grave, and I believe that, I don't have to see him in order to know him. I don't have to be able to wear fancy robes or go to church or do like stupid fancy stuff in order to go to heaven. But He is going to give me sight whenever I get to heaven. Amen. All right, cool. Thanks, Blind Jarrin. We might have you back. Okay? Thanks. Bye. Have a safe trip. Enjoy your drive back. Folks, the gospel of Jesus Christ is that he came, lived a perfect life, died on the cross, took our sin, and rose from the grave. You understand the implications of that? The implication is that he took our place. He took our place. That's what fancy people will call substitutionary atonement. It's as though we were the ones supposed to go to the cross. We were the ones who were supposed to get the forever punishment. And Jesus stopped it and took our place. He stepped in front of us. That's powerful because he took my punishment. He took your punishment. Whenever he judges, it's going to be based on that standard. Do you believe that he took your punishment? If you believe that he took your punishment and you believe that you deserve that punishment because you're a sinner, then you will turn away from your sin and you will believe in the power of Jesus taking your place. Because you believe that Jesus took your punishment and that he rose from the grave, not only are you not going to go to hell forever, but you will never die. Your physical body might, but Jesus, just like Blind Jarrin was saying, Jesus didn't speak in black and white categories. He spoke in everlasting categories. He spoke in categories that the Bible advances, and the Bible only speaks in lost and found, saved and unsaved, wheat and tare, sheep and goat. The Bible doesn't speak in terms of, yeah, you're kind of going through the motions. No. You're either in or you're out. Repent of your sin and believe the gospel. I want everyone to believe the gospel, even if I don't like you. Christians don't have to be nice. They have to be loving. Loving your neighbor does not mean that you have to be nice. It should. You should have compassion and empathy. But if someone's a jerk, tell them they're a jerk. Use the Bible. Use the words the Bible says. Not the words that you heard on the internet. Not the words that you think are smart argumentation. Use what God says. Because as Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice. That's the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can find more information about me. I appreciate your time. I'm Jarrin Jackson. Now go to war. All right, Blind Jarrin, I'm coming.